Hi, I'm Scott, and welcome to the first of my Interversity interviews. This interview, I'm talking to Dean, who's a retired highway patrolman, and he talks about the whole span of his career, starting as a police officer, working in general duties, and then the bulk of his career was on the road, catching naughty people. And he's got some great tales to tell and a real insight into the life of a policeman, the thin blue line. So I hope you enjoy it. Today we're on the road with a highway patrolman. He's not long retired, and he's going to tell us about his adventures on the road. And my guest is Dean. Welcome, Dean.
Thank you. Hello.
Now, Dean isn't his real name. We've got to use that. Is that okay?
That's fine. Yep.
Yeah. His real name is Dean, but it's spelt differently. So even though you're retired, I think it's fair to say once a cop, always a cop?
Yes, absolutely. It becomes part of your personality, I think, and just it gets in your blood.
Yeah, I thought as much when I pulled up today and you came up to my car and looked at it and said, "Is this your car, Scott?"
Yeah. It's hard to shake the old habits, definitely.
Yeah, okay. So did you always want to be a policeman? Like say at school, if kids were running too fast, would you come up to them and say, "Excuse me, you're running a bit fast there"? Or
Yeah.
no?
Not really. I suppose it was always in the back of my mind. It was, when you're a little boy at the fire brigade, policeman, an astronaut or something. But I always admired the police greatly when I was little. But not until I matured, maybe high school age, when I started to think, I think I might be something I could do.
Did you go into the police straight from school?
No, I actually became a motor mechanic. I had a passion for cars and basically followed that path and, got my trade in the motor trade. But during that time, I knew that wasn't going to be my long-term career. I knew there was something better for me. And once I'd finished my trade as a motor mechanic, I applied for the police and there I was, 22 years old.
22 years old.
Yeah.
So initially you went to become general duties policeman.
General duties, yeah, which is frontline uniform. First on the scene. All police start out that way in our state anyway. And I enjoyed it. I really took to it, I suppose.
Good mentoring?
Great mentoring. I had some really good supervisors. My first sergeant, they call you your buddy, who you do all your shifts with about the first 2 or 3 months of your service. He gave me a fantastic grounding into the service, taught me things I still use today, how I speak to people and how to be treated and with the respect. When you put that uniform on, you do turn up at certain areas and you are treated a certain way, just to handle that, I suppose.
And all your policing was in, the greater Sydney area,
Yes.
wasn't it, in Australia?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you're
and
essentially a city policeman.
I was to start with, yes. I moved up the coast with my highway when I joined highway, which was 8 years into my service. I did 8 years of frontline general duties and then joined the highway patrol and moved an hour and a half north of the Sydney area.
Okay. So what precipitated you becoming a highway patrolman?
My life had changed. I'd actually purchased a house out of the Sydney area and I was looking to, one of the beauties of the police service, you can apply for jobs closer to where you live. And the particular job, which was closer to my new home, which I'd purchased, happened to be highway patrol. So I went for the position and got the job. Had to undertake some pretty rigorous training.
What, involving?
Involving high-speed driving courses and more traffic, the traffic equipment, radar, how to use, and LiDARs, another speed detection equipment.
Road spikes?
I don't think I'm trying to remember if we ever used road spikes. I don't think they were actually issued to us at the time that I was doing highway patrol. So it's a fairly recent, more recent thing that's come in. But
Yeah. And you love the highway patrol?
Loved it. Yeah, it ended up being a fantastic fit for me, especially with my passion for cars.
Did you fight the urge then to just sit back and admire a car going at very high speed?
Well, a lot of the times I would pull cars over and I would chat to the fellow about their car.
While you were booking them?
While I was booking them.
Yeah, that's a great car, sir. Here's your ticket for $1,000.
And I'd say to them, it's going particularly well today. So the work you've done on it is admirable.
And sometimes illegal modifications?
Some were, yeah. Just luck of the draw, depending who you pulled over on the day. Every day was different, which was another thing I loved about my entire 20-year career.
And you were absolved from all the, say, more mundane or unsavoury aspects of general duties?
Once I went to highway patrol, yeah, the main reason for that is to free us up. Like the highway patrol, yes, we had trails come. We got to the scene of serious incidents probably before anybody else, even ambulance, fire brigade, we were there. But the whole idea of us was to secure the situation, but get back to our traffic or highway patrol duties. Otherwise, we'd be a car off the road, tied up in a situation. So people would think, oh, the highway patrol turn up and then they're gone. But we'd wait till everyone else was there to deal with the situation, and we'd get back to our traffic duties.
So is it fair to say that you could liken what you did a bit like a fisherman? Like you'd find a good spot, like a fisherman would go to their favourite spot and catch them?
Yes.
Was that a fair analogy?
Yes, and I'm sure everyone's seen a stationary highway patrol car parked on the side or on the freeway, and you're exactly right. It's just like fishing. We'd set up your radar and watch the passing parade of fish, and every now and then, you'd snag one and you go and chase it. And if it was a bit slow, they weren't running that day, you'd move somewhere else.
Did you fight over good spots or?
Not really. There wasn't enough of us, I think, around. We all had our little patches and all different shifts. You know, we had the 3 shifts, morning shift, afternoon shift, a night crew.
So you're pulling people over and you're booking them. What's the most common response for the naughty person? Is it, I'm sorry, or?
Yes, yeah. Thankfully it was. Most people knew exactly what they'd done. They thought, I wasn't paying attention, or I'm running late for this, or yep, you got me. And they just hold their license up and just say, just get it done, you know. And they knew what was coming. But I had a lot of people who wanted to
argue the toss.
Wanted to take me on. Yeah, that was usually a regular thing as well. Not too much, but
what?
You just
10% of people?
Yeah, I suppose 5 to 10 would want to. They were just angry, and I think angry with themselves because they thought, "Oh, I'm done here," and they'd do anything they could to try and get out of it. Some people were, you know, I think I had a lot of compassion, and some people had genuine stories. They were going to see someone who was dying, or I can't remember certain stories off the top of my head, but.
So you had a level of discretion?
I did, yeah. And all police do. It was, within reason. If it was only a small speed, for instance, and there was no harm done and the person was genuinely shot, and we could go back to the radio or the computer and check on their background. If they hadn't been come under notice before, it was a genuine mistake and you could give them a caution.
Mm-hmm. I suppose the other end of the spectrum was that you'd pull someone over and ask for backup or arrest them if they were wanted or something.
I had quite a few moments where, all your skills had to come on board, where the car was full of, unsavoury characters. And the car would have false number plates on it to start with, and it was speeding. And so you'd think this wasn't a one-man job, and you'd have to call for backup if anyone was available. But you just deal with it as required. It was just part of the job. Roadside magistrate, lawkeeper, you name it at the end of the day. Yeah.
In your career, were you ever offered a bribe, either monetarily or, a builder say, mate, let me off, I'll come and build you a fence or something?
No. Look, I might have had a tradie offer me something once or twice, but nothing that really stands out. The only one that stands out, we were doing an RBT operation, pulling in cars. Random breath testing, yep. And we're pulling in car after car in this particular car, and a fellow, his car was in very good condition, which I always sort of did a walk around, asked for his licence, and he held his licence up with some money. It was only $10 with his licence.
$10?
$10.
Jeez.
And he made no eye contact with me, and he just kept shaking the licence. And if you can picture it, so I'm standing beside the window of the car, and I just kept asking him, please, sir, I only require your licence. This banter went on for a minute or so, and he finally pulled the $10 away, got his licence. I went and did all the checks. Everything was fine. He passed his breath test. Car was perfect. And I handed him his licence, and I said, you're all good to go, sir. Bye. That was the one and only time I ever got offered any money, and it was a bizarre incident, I suppose, when you look at it. But around that time, there was Internal Affairs were cracking down on any inappropriate police behaviour, and Highway Patrol were being targeted for taking bribes and letting people off, for letting their friends off or whatever. So we put two and two together at the end of the shift that I was probably put under the test by Internal Affairs. And, I've kept my job.
$10?
$10, yeah. I think it was just a pretty minor test, but I passed.
A cup of coffee and a donut.
Yeah, even though it was a couple of years ago, it still wasn't a lot of money.
That equates to about $6 for those listening in America.
Yeah. But even if it was more money, the result would have been the same.
Yeah. But you did have some full-on, movie-style pursuits, didn't you? All that was missing was the dramatic music.
Yeah.
Tell us about those.
Look, I've had a few. There was one that I had. It started out, I was on the night crew, so it was early hours of the morning, speeding car on the freeway, and we pulled over. I was driving and I had my partner with me, and it was just a regular stop. We pulled over. My partner went to talk to the car, and the car just took off, and the pursuit began. And it went for an hour and a half in total, which is, if you're watching a pursuits in movies go for about 5 minutes, maybe 10. So think to yourself driving on and off very fast, speeds of exceeds.
How fast?
I think the highest we got was probably about 180 kilometres an hour.
Wow, that's well over 100 miles an hour,
it is.
I believe.
Yes.
This is through suburban?
There was part freeway, part suburbia. You imagine an hour and a half, we covered a lot of ground. And the pursuit ended up in a dead end. And the driver and passenger actually got out of the car while it was still running. So me and my partner, we got out and we were on foot chasing them. I ended up injuring my knee fairly badly, actually, after that pursuit, which made me put my papers in a few years later due to the injuries from that. But that was one pursuit that sticks in my mind for several reasons. Another one, which was very exciting, I suppose, and you could have made it if there was cameras on. It would have been a couple, male and female, had just robbed a liquor store. They'd taken cash and money and some liquor, and we got in the pursuit of them. They were in a stolen car, and we pursued them for about 15, 20 minutes. During that pursuit, a shotgun came out the passenger window, pointed straight at my vehicle, straight at me, and I saw the flames and the smoke and the noise, and so...
They missed.
They missed. There was several shots from the shotgun, and I was trying to paint the picture. They're driving at reasonably high speeds, and I was just weaving behind them. And this was in just the suburban streets. People walking along. It was
so dangerous.
Yes, it was just sort of mid-afternoon and extremely dangerous. And there was no way I was going to try and fire back at them. That's not the way we're trained, because we're putting the public in danger. And after the shotgun, a handgun came out, a large Magnum, which got unloaded towards me as well.
What, emptied it?
Emptied the whole gun, yeah. There was the six shot.
A Magnum?
Magnum, yeah. And it looked, I know...
Being the most powerful handgun in the world.
But you think about the Dirty Harry, when you see it being fired at you, it was fairly scary. And they ended up driving into a lake, drove their car into a lake, and we got a bit wet, but we got both the offenders, and they were charged eventually. And I got a bravery award.
Wow.
About 12 months after that. Yeah, which I was fairly proud of, and we no one was hurt. Anybody. There was a few bullets found in homes along that route.
Goodness.
But, yeah.
In your career, did you have to fire your weapon in anger?
Never fired it in anger. Only we had pistol shoots every 6 months. We used to go through quite a few rounds. We practiced fairly heavily, and I was quite proficient with my weapon. I did withdraw it once or twice, but or a handful of times, I suppose, certain situations, but never fired it in anger.
As a precaution.
As a precaution, yeah, exactly.
So you would have started with the previous weapon before the Glock?
Yes, we had the 38 Smith & Wesson, which was a good little gun, but unfortunately it didn't have the firepower or the accuracy of more modern weapons, so we went to the Glock about halfway through my career, which was a far superior weapon.
I think the Glock is the standard police.
Yeah, I think it is worldwide now. We sort of followed suit, I think, with the rest of the world, and it was far more accurate and more powerful. So, yeah.
Yeah, as a ultimate deterrent.
Absolutely, yeah. But the way we were trying, a last resort. We bring it out if they were going to harm somebody else or yourself, obviously. So, yeah.
So you talked about that injuring yourself. That led, well, directly or indirectly to you having to retire. It
did. It did sort of prematurely. I was nearing my 20 years service. Not that was a milestone or anything, but my knee, during that pursuit that I discussed, I'd hyperextended my right knee and basically destroyed all my cartilage. And I think I'd had 2 or 3 arthroscopes at that point. And I got to the point where the medical officer had approached me and said, you need to put your paperwork in to retire. And I didn't want to, but the policy at the time was if a policeman couldn't get off from their desk and go out and be operational, services weren't required anymore. So I had to put my papers in.
You're invalided out.
Yeah, I'm out on it's a hurt on duty pension, it's called. So it's our super that we draw on is used for our pension, yeah.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that, and I do. There was a lot of good, but then I see how I remember days where I'd come home and think, I don't think I can do this anymore, especially when you start to mature in the job and you have a wife and a family and, you have so much to live for, and sometimes there is your life is on the line sometimes, Some days in the highway patrol I was driving at warp speeds. I was off, over 200 kilometres an hour chasing people. And things can go wrong. And I did lose a very good friend of mine doing exactly what I used to do every day, chasing somebody.
He had an accident?
Yes, someone had turned in front of him, a disgruntled driver who'd been booked the week before, saw him chasing somebody and drove in front of him. So he went to avoid him and unfortunately pushed him into a telegraph pole. And we used to share a car, this particular officer. So that really hit close to home, that it could have been anyone's time.
Mm. Mm.
No,
Yeah.
but going back to what you're saying, yes, I do miss it. I miss the camaraderie and the job itself. I know I did a good job. I protected people. And, it gets to a point where you really...
Well, it sounds like, it's almost sort of like I'm not trying to be facetious, but how people like yourself say when you say goodbye to your family, when you go to work.
Yeah.
It could be the last time, and that the potential is there.
Yes.
Rather than, say, someone who's just going into the office or to work in a cafe or many other professions that you are the thin blue line.
Yes.
And that you pull people over and you just don't know. And these pursuits, I think, even despite the fact that you've got very good equipment and highly trained, things happen.
Things happen, exactly.
And you often see on the news where, police cars will be involved in some sort of accident or crash associated with a pursuit.
Yes.
And also, of course, you'd have to give consideration whether the pursuit is at what speed and whether it's viable at all, given the potential of harm to the general public.
They're very heavily monitored because the radio will hear you call a pursuit and they will ask the weather conditions, the traffic conditions, how fast you're going, and almost 50% of pursuits are called off very early because of that situation. If it's clear, if it's on a freeway, light traffic, very experienced highway officer, they'll let it go for a bit. But lots of pursuits get called off early because they don't want to bring the general public into any danger if they can help it.
And the cars you use, they're modified?
No, well, they're factory high-powered cars, but no modification. In the earlier days, they used to put wider tyres on certain models and things, but now the cars that come from the factory are well set up. So really all it is put into them is the police equipment and sirens, but they're cars that you can get from the factory.
And obviously you would have attended many accidents.
Yeah, too many.
Is the consensus right, the overwhelming factor is speed?
A high percentage definitely is speed and just driving ability in general. They are called accidents for a reason, yes, but I just believe people's driving ability isn't what it should be. There should be more training given to drivers.
In which specific areas?
Just on general driving, and especially being courteous. Speed is a massive factor. There's no question. But I just think in all facets of driving, I know it takes 12 months, for a learner to go and apply for their license, which is good. But yeah, the inexperienced driver, they come unstuck.
And what about drivers affected by substances? What are some of your experiences there?
Oh, gee. I've had a lot, and it's unfortunate, but they've got no control over the car. I've been to multiple where someone under the influence, be it drug or alcohol, and they've collided with several cars, caused injuries. So, yeah, I've been to some horrendous run and just some minor ones, just to, toe to tails, just from someone who's not capable of, shouldn't be behind the wheel of a car. So, there's lots of deterrents out there, but sometimes it just doesn't get in.
Well, in my other podcast, Child in Time, growing up in the 60s, available wherever you get your podcasts, in one of the episodes there, I talk about the horrendous road toll in the late 60s, early 70s in this state we're in now, New South Wales. It was well over 1,000 people would lose their lives in New South Wales. Now, in 2024, when we're recording this, well, the latest figures last year was about, I think, 350 people died on the roads, which is 350 too many, not counting the injuries. The only thing you can say is that it's a massive improvement, given that there's almost 3 times the amount of cars on the road as there was in, say, 1971.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is attributed to the drink driving laws, how in the 60s, I'm not sure when the laws came in, but you could essentially, there wasn't random breath testing and things like that. The cars themselves, with things like airbags, warnings, braking systems.
Yep.
I think a lot of the roads that didn't have a speed limit, now they do. Identifying black spots and all these things. So certainly the statistics say that there's still a long way to go, but there has been some big strides made in terms of road safety, given that pretty much everyone is involved in some way, walking on a footpath, driving a car, being a passenger in a car or a vehicle. It's something which pretty much involves all of us.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. But definitely the safety equipment in cars now is a huge factor. Airbags, for instance, and seatbelts weren't even mandatory.
That's right, yes.
My first car didn't have seatbelts fitted. It wasn't produced with one and didn't have to have them.
Well, we didn't have them in a car when I was a child.
No.
We'd lie on the back seat and whatever. For a brief while, my father had like a flat bed truck, and we'd sit in the back of the truck on a major Sydney road, which is, if you did that nowadays, the police would be there in a few minutes. People would be on the phone. You'd
be on the news.
Yes. Yeah. So I think overall that there has been, a lot of improvements.
Definitely.
But ultimately, I think it gets down to people being good citizens and doing the right thing, designated drivers, having their cars roadworthy. I mean, I'm sure you've tell us about some of the vehicles you pulled over which are not roadworthy.
Oh, gee. I don't know where to start there. I pulled over some terrible cars with, a tyre is supposed to have tread on it.
Of a certain depth.
There's none at all. It's
bald.
If you could see my hairstyle here, which is bald, that's what these tyres were like. Shiny. Even the wires coming out of them.
Oh, really?
Sparks coming out as it was driving past us. Yeah. Yeah, it was horrendous. And people's excuse, I can't afford it, or whatever their excuse was just bizarre.
Lights not working.
All of the above things were actually, one was a fantastic car we pulled up, and his steering wheel was a set of pliers. Swear to God, it was a pair of the lock-on pliers which he was using because he couldn't afford to get a proper steering wheel on his car. Yeah.
So a lot of this, your background as a qualified mechanic would have been invaluable.
Oh, yeah. But I think that's where the highway patrol and me fitted very well. So when it come to defects, I was under the bonnet of cars and pointing out things, and you could see the driver looking at me saying, "How do you know all this?" Yeah, because I used to work on them. So my mechanical thing came in very handy in the highway patrol.
It sounds like you landed in a job that you were made for, really.
Look, there was particular days there, I must admit, I thought, gee, I'm getting paid for this. I was in a beautiful V8 car, air conditioned, and I could drive really at any speed chasing somebody, and I wasn't going to get booked because
I mean, if you're really, really hungry and in a hurry for some donuts, I mean, that could be lights and sirens, couldn't it?
That never happened.
Never happened.
No, but I think there'll be denials all around on that one. Maybe McDonald's, but no, not the donuts.
Was McDonald's free for you?
No, 50%.
50%.
And there was certain governments that tried to withdraw that because they looked at it as a bribe or gratuity given to the police. But McDonald's counteracted that and said, we like having police in our establishment. It makes our customers feel safe. So we were happy that they maintained their 50%. So whenever we wanted a quick feed, it was handy.
Yeah. Well, I think most businesses or neighbourhoods or whatever are more than happy to have police around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't abused. The blokes, every now and then it was just so handy to pull in and grab a feed on the go.
And when you were working, operating your hairdryer, your speed gun and things like that, or just driving, I'm sure you had a sense pretty much universally of just having the world slow down around you.
Actually, I was going to mention that in my days when we'd get rostered on the actual freeway, which was a big strip of our patrol. And some days I'd just pull onto the freeway and sit in the slow lane and sit exactly on the speed limit and watch what would happen. And
no one passed you?
Surprisingly, no one surprised me. But didn't I have a bank of cars behind me? By the time I got past, because it was about a 20K strip, 20, 40 Ks, and I'd look in the rearview mirror and I'd have a bit of a, I'd laugh with myself.
We've got a convoy.
Convoy, because it'd be me and just 3 lanes of cars all sitting. And I'd pull off and I'd watch, and I'd just watch them all go. They were like corralled animals, because people do exceed the limit by 5 or 10 is sort of the average, I suppose, and you give or take that, It's the way we sort of roll. We don't book cars for 5 kilometres over the limit. But yeah, so some days I'd just do that and I'd pull back on and I'd do it because we had north and southbound. So I'd head north and I'd do the exact same thing, and I'd just do that for a while. And during that time, obviously, while I was on there was no accidents, there was no drama, there was no road rage. Everyone just sat on the speed limit, nice and calm. And I thought, well, while I'm doing this, I'm keeping the road toll down.
Yeah. Was there any time of the day, the week, or the year where things were especially bad?
Usually holiday time was bad, because you'd have all your city drivers who are usually just going from A to B, doing in their 60 kilometre zone. All of a sudden they're on a freeway, 110 kilometre, and out they go, and they've got the wife and kids, and they're, we're heading up to see Auntie so-and-so, and they're just preoccupied. They were sort of the hectic times, and you'd get the fishing was full and flourishing. You'd fill your basket, fairly easy, and we saturated the freeways and things.
We haven't mentioned like heavier vehicles like trucks and vans. And I know when I'm driving and say on a freeway and I have a couple of big trucks either side and one in front, I feel like an ant that could be squashed. I mean, I've never driven a large truck, so that's a whole different
Yeah, look,
oeuvre, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think just be wary of trucks, because a lot of truck drivers I dealt with expect other motorists to realise that it takes them a lot longer to stop, for instance. And when they need to change lanes, it's not just a 2-metre vehicle. You're talking 40, 50 metres long, some of them.
So that would be the thing, like if say you're coming to, say, a red light and you pull in front of a truck
that's slowing down,
that doesn't have enough room to stop.
Yeah, use a bit of common sense. They can't stop like a car can, nowhere near it. They're pushing tons of weight behind them.
So the truckies or truckers, you'd still be booking them and checking them?
Oh, yeah. They're supposed to be, they were limited to only 100. The trucks are only limited to 100 in our state.
100 kilometres.
100 kilometres an hour. And a lot of them were supposed to have governors fitted to their motor vehicles, which prevented them from going above that. But most companies disconnected the governor. So we'd most of the time during the day the trucks behaved themselves, but night time we'd get because a lot of trucks, if you're out and about early hours, a lot of people are normally sleeping, but we'd be out on the freeway, and that's when a lot of truckies go and do their deliveries, and we'd get some very high speeds with trucks.
I was some years ago in a very large country town, and the main freeway between capital cities passed through. And I thought, wow, after dark, the trucks own this now.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, this is our place now.
That's what happens, yeah. Yeah, they just take over. Yeah. But most of them, I had a few run-ins with some truckies, but most of the guys, it's their business. They own their trucks. It's their lifeblood, and they're doing a job. And as I said, I had a couple of run-ins with some rogue ones, but most of them were good fellows. And
well, it is their livelihood after all.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of this, because they have logbooks too, they can only do certain stints and they have to have rest breaks. So that was one of our big jobs, was to check logbooks to make sure that they're well rested and they're not affected by drugs or alcohol. It's all part of the deal.
Okay, so post highway patrol, how was that? Was that a bit of a letdown, bit of a come down from, when you hung up the Glock and the hat?
Yeah, very much. It becomes part of your life, and putting on the uniform every day, I loved it. And just in a personal respect, just going to like a function, a barbecue or something, and introduce you, and someone, hi Dean, what do you do? I'm retired. I used to be, I'm a policeman. I was proud to say it. When you're sort of an ex, you're an ex. So I sort of lost a bit of my identity, I suppose. And my wife sort of informed me later on that I'd sort of sunk into a form of depression because I had lost that part of my identity, getting up in the morning and maintaining order, I suppose. And it did get to me, yeah.
And there's absolutely no way that you're going to have, I suppose, the adrenaline.
No.
That sometimes your job would involve at any time.
No, that's right. Yeah, it was probably, as you say, in hindsight, thinking I was missing that adrenaline rush or the excitement of it. I guess.
If your wife said, look, we're out of milk, can you get some? You could have done a high speed down to the supermarket, but probably not advised. But I can sort of appreciate that you went from, that structure, and I'm sure the camaraderie was a big part of it as well.
A huge part, yeah. It was, they call it a brotherhood, and it definitely was. I'm in contact with some ex workers, and actually my classmates that I went through the academy with, we have regular get-togethers, and it's fantastic catching up. And old areas that I worked with have reunions, which I make sure I attend. And I went to one regularly, and it was great seeing guys that I hadn't seen for 20 years, but we're talking about shifts we did. And
talking like cops do. Like, how did you get here? Well, I proceeded in a northerly direction. And next thing I knew, yeah.
A bit like that. There is a bit of that police talk where you can let your guard down and talk about some.
Yes.
You can say the word good old days, but to us, they were. We got the job done. Yeah.
Great. Well, we all thank you for your service over the years and hope that you continue to enjoy your retirement.
Well, I'm still involved with cars. Actually, I detail cars now, so I'm still. The irony, I clean them now. I don't drive them fast. So.
You've sort of come full circle.
Full circle, I'll just work on the cars now. But, I hope if anyone, young person listening, wants to go into the police force, I'd back them all the way. It's a great job.
It's a great job, yeah. Dean, thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.